So, Super Mario Party Jamboree just came out almost 5 months ago, and me and my roommates have been having a blast stealing each other's stars without ever actually increasing the star economy the old-fashioned way. While we've managed to play just about every single map 2 to 3 times over, along the way we discovered the single most important and enjoyable new mechanic that the Mario Party series has experienced since items were introduced all the way back in Mario Party 2. And no, it's not the Jamboree partners, it's Pro Rules. Pro Rules are a brand new rule set that players can agree upon when starting up a round of Mario Party, and they're a set of strict guidelines that players must follow that add a ton more control and flair over your typical casual party. A few of these rules are about removing a bunch of the random elements that can end up feeling frustrating to players that prefer less up-to-chance happenstance, but others add some cool interactions that allow for some brand new strategies never before seen in the Party franchise. I'll be going over how I feel about Pro Rules as a whole as they currently stand, as well as how I believe that they can be improved later on down the line in this little video. So, let's get into it. The first facet of Pro Rules is the strict turn limit of 12 turns total. That turn limit might seem a bit weird, but the baseline amount of turns that a casual party can go for in Jamboree is between 10 and 30, so I imagine that this is meant to be slightly longer than the shortest game possible to be more palatable to a competitive audience. Jamboree still considers this to take around an hour and a half, but to me and my roommate's experience, that's a bit of an overshoot in estimation. There's a lot of cutscene fluff in Jamboree, so 12 turns can seem quite long depending on how much the current players know about the minigames and boards. Before the party even begins, every player is prompted to pick one item from a list of up to 8 that they are allowed to bring into the game and use at their leisure. These are the mushroom, which simply adds a flat +5 to your dice roll, a creepy dice block, which forces whoever it affects to roll a die that only consists of the numbers 1, 2, and 3, the warp box, which teleports the user to an opponent at random, the pipe, which teleports the player to a random space on the map, the skeleton key, which opens a locked door on certain maps, the chomp call, which forces the current star location to be re-rolled to an available star space, the cellular shopper, which allows you to access the Koopa shop regardless of your current location on the map, and the 10 coin steal trap, which places a trap on a space near you that steals, you guessed it, 10 coins from the unfortunate soul that lands on it. The items that you'll want to bring along are sometimes map dependent, but a few of the starter items became mainstay playstyles that me and my roommates ended up defaulting to due to their reliability and ease of access. I can cover those in another video if you guys want to hear about some Pro Rule strategies that me and my friends came up with. Once turn order is established, Toad will announce the only bonus star that will be up for grabs after the game ends. Normally in casual Jamboree, there are 2 bonus stars given out. 3 bonus stars if you're doing the longest kinds of parties, but they remain anonymous until being revealed after the party is finished. The announced bonus star will only ever be either the eventful star, given to players that land on the most happening spaces, the slowpoke star, given to the player that moved the least amount of spaces over the course of the game, or the sightseer star, given to the player that moved to the most amount of spaces. This may seem like a great deal of bonus stars are off the table, but if you look at the list of available bonus stars in Jamboree's casual mode, a great many of them are either out of reach to certain players like the minigame star or rich star, or are outright rewarding of terrible playstyles like the Bowser Space Star or Misfortune Star. Any of these 3 bonus stars being announced at the start of the game allows players to work towards them as they play, making choices to inch them forward to a guaranteed star that cannot be stolen under normal gameplay parameters. Literally, so many games I've had under Pro Rules came down to which player used a custom dice block to roll low or onto a happening space, or which player used their coins to buy high-cost movement items instead of utility or valuable late-game items out from under other players. And speaking of items, every map has a Koopa shop as well as a Chemic shop. These shops sell different items from each other, Bowser, but under Pro Rules, their stocks become limited. Yes, the items that each shop sells now only have a maximum number of 2 before that item goes out of stock. And that's for the rest of the game. They never get restocked. This simple modifier adds so much depth to each player's turns, and I'm all for it. Sure, you may not have enough money to buy a golden pipe and then a star next turn, but what if you bought it anyway? That's one less golden pipe for your opponents to be able to take advantage of, letting you save up to use it at your leisure. Maybe you got to a shop late and all they had were crummy, cursed dice blocks. Well, that's on you. Maybe avoid the shop like the plague, since it doesn't provide any value to you for the rest of the game then. Starting the game with a cellular shopper is always a powerful move, since it will let you browse the Koopa Store's wares and take one precious piece from it before anyone else. Some generic tweaks to random elements across certain map segments in Pro Rules are as follows. Hidden blocks are completely removed, meaning no random star given out to players who just happen to land on the correct blue spaces. Chance time spaces have also been removed. Thank God. These things would be way too accessible with the tools that players are given in Jamboree, believe me. The home stretch has also had its random event removed so as not to provide any players any undue advantages over others. Item minigames have also been removed, and landing on an item space always just results in the standard roulette that players can hit to obtain whatever item they happen to get on it. Boo's coin steal always steals exactly 15 coins, meaning you can rely on Boo to actually do something substantial in this game. Besides stealing stars, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Like, that's good. Versus spaces also now always require players to bet 20 of their coins instead of it being a random amount. Lucky spaces have been limited to a choice between gaining a double dice item or a flat 10 coins. I really like this because some of the bonuses that players can get from lucky spaces in casual Mario Party Jamboree are pretty freaking absurd. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in a competitive setting, you understand. You understand? Also, changing it from being a roulette to a static choice means more player control over covering what they need most at the moment. This also prevents one player, who's the household minigame master, from hogging all of the coins by winning every single minigame. Unlucky spaces have been changed so that the player who landed on them always gives 7 coins to the player in last place. If they are in last place, then they give it to whoever's in third place. I think this is the only change through Pro Rules that actively tries to help players that are struggling in last place, and it's definitely a welcome one. And probably the most substantial change is to Bowser spaces. We all know landing on a Bowser space is ill-advised at best, but Pro Rules seeks to make that something players know not to do unless they're literally forced to. Bowser now always steals a star from any player that lands on a Bowser space. No Bowser Revolution, no lose 20 coins, no play a Bowser minigame. You land on this place, you lose a star. If you don't have a star, then the big bad takes half of your coins instead. Get absolutely destroyed, you simpleton. On a higher note, the location of not only star spaces, but spent star spaces are now noted on the map for every player to see playing under Pro Rules. For those unaware, certain spaces on each board are where stars are able to be purchased, and these are always predetermined instead of being random. This has always been the case for every Mario Party in existence, and we call these star spaces. Whereas in previous older Mario Party titles, you would either need to look up a fan-made map of where star spaces actually were, or have enough experience to know about them beforehand. With Jamboree's Pro Rules active, these spaces are noted both on your map and the physical board itself. Additionally, if a star space has been used up, the spent star space will be updated for all players to see, and that space will not be able to host a new star location until all active star spaces have been used up and reset. Having this information available to all players bridges the gap between the Mario Party pros and newbies, and leads to more balanced gameplay as a result. A fantastic change in my opinion. Minigames in Pro Rules are now chosen via a voting system as opposed to simply being random, very similar to how battle minigames were handled in certain Mario parties. Each player gets to cast a single vote as to which minigame that they would like to play at the end of each turn from a list of 3. free, and those votes are then cast into a roulette, similar to how Mario Kart Online chooses which track to play next. You always get a chance to play a minigame that you are good at, even if every other player votes against yours. Also, the player who took the time to land on a versus space gets to choose the battle minigame that the group will be playing, an incredible ability that makes it very worth it to land on these when you have the opportunity to do so. Mashers rise up, it's domination time. Probably the most powerful ability granted to players in Pro Rules is during the home stretch portion of the party. Normally, when two players land on the same space after the home stretch has been announced, you can engage them in a duel with however many coins that the initiator is willing to put on the line. In Pro Rules, players are also granted the ability to wager stars as well, as long as both parties have one in their possession. This requires the use of the Super Dueling Glove item in a casual parties, a very rare item to get your hands on, but Pro Rules makes that an innate ability of every player come the final 5 turns of the game, making that last bit of partying very intense indeed. Custom dice blocks become a free star if you know what you're doing. And that's about the gist of all of the rule changes that Pro Rules provides. So, what do I think about them all? Well, first of all, I'm very happy that Nintendo has decided to embrace the more competitive side of Mario Party. I understand that the Mario Party series has always been intended as a more casual and unserious party game. I mean, it's literally in the title, right there. But the phrase Mario Party ruins friendships wasn't breathed into existence overnight. Where there is competition, no matter how casual, there will be people that want to learn how to play to the best of their ability to overcome their opponents. Mario Kart, Super Smash Bros., Pokemon, Monopoly, all of these game series were created for the casual experience, but ended up growing a competitive scene that rivals its easygoing counterpart. And I'm glad Mario Party has decided to lean into accepting that side of their audience. I do think that the rigidity of Pro Rules has some room for improvement, mainly in the lack of customization that players are allowed to have when it comes to an agreed upon rule set. Yes, players can agree on either casual or Pro Rules, but the Pro Rules themselves are a locked and unnegotiable set of guidelines that players must follow without question. For example, the 12 turn limit. Every Pro Rule game will always only last 12 turns, and once you play enough games with this limitation, you begin to see how short of a game 12 turns really is. Sure, it may last around an hour, but during that hour, you barely have enough time to get anything substantial done before the bell is rung and it's all over. And with how many of the maps function in Jamboree, this can be an exceedingly underwhelming experience. Palatable for sure, but lacking some depth that could keep players invested in wanting to come back for more. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the Rainbow Galleria map. Rainbow Galleria is a 3-floor mall with a few gimmicks involving shopping, hive movement, and happening spaces. The overarching side quest of this map is to make it to 4 stamp stations and get each individually colored stamp or your stamp card. Once you've collected all 4 stamps, you can make your way back to the visitor's kiosk at the very beginning and hand in your card for a substantial coin reward of 50 coins. Each stamp by itself is worth 10 coins each, and you can actually hand it in incomplete to cash in early if you're tight on funds. But the highest coin reward will always be a fully filled out stamp card. Newsflash, this is probably never gonna happen in a Pro Rules game unless you specifically set out to do so from the beginning and either get lucky with or ignore any competitive elements of the party that you're taking part in. Or just like roll really good with your triple dice blocks. King Bowser's Keep is the final map that you unlock and the most difficult map to play on, and has probably one of the most punishing gimmicks that I've ever seen in a Mario Party game. The center square area, along with the bottom half circle area that you use to make it there, are where a majority of the star spaces lie, and every couple of turns, the imposter Bowser in the middle will add more and more Bowser spaces around them, making going for a star an exercise in testing your luck or wasting all of your resources resources only to lose everything in the end. This is circumvented by every item that Imposter Bowser steals being locked away in the map's vault. This vault has a 2-number code that is randomized every time a party is started, as well as every time after it is opened. As you'd imagine, any player that opens up this vault is basically guaranteed to win, as every player's loot will be given to them in one lump sum. Good luck figuring out this code, as doing so requires you to go out of your way from where every star spawns for the chance to guess 2 numbers that might give you the win instantly. Not a very competitive rule set when it's literally down to luck. Goomba Lagoon is a tropical island map with a rising and lowering tide gimmick. Every 2 turns, the tide will rise, making all sandy paths inaccessible and warping any players on them to the last island that they were on. After another 2 turns, the tides will then lower, on and so forth. This island directly in the middle is particularly noteworthy since if you happen to be on it when the tides rise, there's literally nowhere for you to go until the tides lower again. Every happening space besides the ones in front of these zip lines cause the tide changing effect to occur, and if they are triggered, then the timer on the 2-turn tide effect is reset, meaning you can literally be stuck on this island for the entirety of the game if you're unlucky enough. And of course, there's a star space on this island, so you're eventually gonna have to end up on it regardless. Despite the pro rules attempting to remove random chance effects from occurring too frequently, this map is always subject to their whimsy. A higher turn count could mitigate the potential blowback from such unlucky occurrences, but alas, that is currently out of our control. All 3 of these maps I would consider high turn count maps, Rainbow Galeria and King Bowser's Keep especially, as despite how much criticism it seems that I'm throwing their way, I do like their gimmicks. The 12 turn limit in Pro Rules is just far too short for any of these maps to truly get going to their fullest potential, and it really feels like the rule set was tacked on after these maps were created without playtesting to see if they even meshed well together. You're better off playing Mario's Rainbow Castle, Roll'em Raceway, Western Land, or Mega Wiggler's Tree Party if you're planning on using Pro Rules, as they're your far more standardized short-term maps that facilitate small turn counts better. Although, in the case of Mega Wiggler's Tree Party, my household has actually banned this map from the list of approved maps to play on for one very specific and aggravating reason. The plunder chest is back. Yes, the plunder chest, Mario Party's most hated item, is back with a vengeance. For some reason, despite each shop in Pro Rules having differing inventories from casual rules, Mega Wiggler's Tree Party decided that Chemic's shop here should be able to sell the plunder chest item. For those who don't know, the plunder chest allows you to target any player of your choosing and steal 1 item from their inventory. For the low cost of 20 coins, you get to nab something out of someone else's stash. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, Koopa Store sells golden pipes for 25 coins, which when used teleports the player to just before the star, wherever it is currently on the map. It's basically a guaranteed star as long as you have the cash on hand. What the plunder chest does is guarantee that for the rest of the game after someone buys it, no one can ever obtain a useful item for fear of having it stolen. The only counterplay, if you can even call it that, is to always have an inventory full of items so that the plunder chest has a chance of missing the valuable items that you own. I played a game of Pro Rules with my roommates and had a game where one player had obtained a golden pipe without the appropriate amount of coins to use it on the next turn. They had 2 items in their inventory at the time, including the golden pipe. I made my way to Chemic's shop on my turn and purchased the plunder chest with the intention of rolling for my opponent's golden pipe next turn since he couldn't use it without it being wasted. Obviously, my roommate wanted to preserve it and use it the next time that they had the funds for a star, so they spent their turn landing on an item space to net their 3rd item and make stealing the golden pipe a 33% chance roll for me. It came to my turn, I used the plunder chest, selected them, and stole their golden pipe. I netted a 5-coin return on my investment, used the golden pipe on my next turn to gain a star, and ended up taking the game despite my friend doing everything correct to prevent this exact scenario from happening. That's Mario Party, baby! What's interesting to note about the plunder chest is that it's also available on Mario's Rainbow Castle, yet me and my household don't consider that map to be off limits. Why is that? Well, the gimmick of Mario's Rainbow Castle is that the star location never changes, and the map is a one-way trip directly toward it, with some paths that make you take longer to get there if you want to head by Boo or prevent yourself from reaching the end too quickly. You'd want to go slow on purpose because every time someone reaches the end of the map or lands on a happening space, the tower in the middle rotates to reveal Imposter Bowser, who sells you a Zatar instead, which just loses you a ton of momentum and coins. On Mario's Rainbow Castle, there are no golden pipe items for sale, as they would be way too powerful. This makes purchasing a plunder chest a less devastating move, as the power level of items on this map are drastically reduced, being limited to movement-based items or player teleporting items. Paying 20 coins for a plunder chest on this map will only ever be a net loss in value, only being a viable purchase when stealing someone's item guarantees that they will be forced to encounter Imposter Bowser and lose that game momentum. In my opinion, there should never be an item in competitive Mario Party that someone can purchase that instantly makes every other player weaker for the rest of the game. At least in Mario Party 3, you had the option to purchase item bags, so you always had a full inventory. I'm actually pretty shocked the plunder chest is even still around, let alone in a competitive rule set, and for that reason, I'm out. I do love the idea of being able to duel for stars without an item. Frankly, I don't even understand why you need a super dueling glove to do that in casual mode, which, by the way, is exclusive to one shop on one map for some reason that you have to land on a happening space to even get. The problem with dueling for stars is that the quality of duel minigames in Jamboree are sorely lacking in not only variety, but substance as well. When I talk about duel minigames, I usually like to bring up Mario Party 3 or Mario Party 5 since they're my favorite ones, as I think both games have a fantastic list in them for every type of player. We've got luck minigames, skill minigames, reaction minigames, knowledge minigames, mashing minigames, and both Mario Party 3 and 5 have at least 10 of them, if not more. Jamboree has 4 actually, if you have motion minigames turned off. A minigame where you hold up and win, a minigame where you hold forward and win, a minigame where you let your opponent win by doing literally anything, and a minigame that doesn't even really feel good to play, but to give a reminder that there's a star on the line when you're doing this. The only skill-based duel minigame in Jamboree is Fast Fishing, which is a blink and you'll miss it, react faster than your opponent, and now you're Winstar richer kind of game. Also, this minigame is a motion minigame, meaning that the only skill-based duel minigame in all of Jamboree is motion control exclusive. Taking a look at Jamboree's minigame list is pretty funny, because the box art claims that this game has the most amount of minigames in a Mario Party title to date. Technically, this is true, but Jamboree suffers from pretty severe category bloat. There's a ton of alternate modes that have their own specific minigames completely separate from any standardized party mode, alongside motion minigames that can be opted out of if you don't like using the Joy-Cons, or if you're like me and have Joy-Cons that are slightly broken and therefore unusable in a competitive setting. I'm not dropping $50 on a new pair. Sorry, I'm not doing that. Make your controllers last. I've never had this problem with my GameCube controller. Why does this cost so much? If you use a pro controller like me and are playing in the standard party mode, then the available list of minigames goes from 112 all the way down to around 50. You can't play rhythm minigames because they're exclusive to Rhythm Kitchen. You can't play Survivathon or coin minigames because they're exclusive to the Kapathlon mode. You can't play Kaboom Squad minigames because they're exclusive to Kaboom Squad. Item minigames are turned off in Pro Rules, and several of the standardized party mode minigames are also also motion control based. This does have its own upsides and downsides, like having a more concentrated and focused list of minigames that every player can quickly learn and understand, which eventually makes for quicker rounds of Mario Party. But it also leads to stale gameplay as you play through Lumber Tumble again, or Cold Front, or Stamp Out. I hate this game. Why does it show up so often? And while we're still talking about the quality of the minigames, the 1 versus 3 options are just atrocious. Sunset Standoff, Cookie Cutters, and Bruiser Bash are pretty much guaranteed wins for the solo player, whilst Snow Brawl and Cage Cats are the opposite. It makes me really not ever excited to see a 1v3 minigame come up, because I just know it's usually going to be a full sweep from one of the two sides. I know Mario Party has technically always struggled with this issue, but it feels particularly noteworthy in Jamboree due to the diluted minigame pool. You end up replaying the same minigames over and over in just a single session. One final gripe I have is specifically about the Bowser space changes. Yes, I believe that the Bowser space should signify a potential significant loss for the player unfortunate enough to land on it, but that's not always been what the Bowser space has done in the past. Probably the most iconic part about Bowser space functionality has been the Bowser Revolution event, which sees Bowser take every single player's coins into one pot and then distribute them back evenly so that each player has the same amount of money. It's communism, baby! In Mario Party 3, the best one, landing on a Bowser space while you're flat broke will actually see Bowser give you a nice lump sum of 20 to 40 coins out of pity. Given Pro Rules' strict mandates on a star or half coin loss for landing on a Bowser space, this removes a potential option for players to take advantage of. I think that this specific interaction shows how Pro Rules and the nature of Party's innate randomness sometimes feel like trying to mix oil and water. Simply adding certain customization options for Bowser space outcomes could relieve this problem. I don't know, I'm just a loser who plays video games all day, so I don't want to sound like this is an easy implementation or even worth the time it would take to program all of this. I do very much respect that we have gotten a new Mario Party game and that we've even gotten to this far with Pro Rules. Still, there's so much to love about a more streamlined and digestible set of rules that let players get better and better every time that they play. You start learning that buying out the more high-impact items early lets you simplify the game state and remove huge swings in momentum from ever occurring. Or maybe you play Mario Kart style and smuggle a golden pipe or two into the endgame with the cash to back up your upcoming comeback. Learning the maps alongside the do's and don'ts of how to properly navigate each one is where the skill ceiling has been raised by a fair bit, especially in deciding which item is best to bring from the start. Holding onto stars in Jamboree can sometimes be a pretty difficult endeavor, since this game is not stingy at all with giving players large amounts of coins. And Boo is always a hop, skip, and a jump off the beaten path to offer their services. On maps like Roll'em Raceway, it's actually sometimes easier to save up to constantly steal stars via Boo than it is to actually nab a star the old-fashioned way. That was the joke that I made at the very beginning of the video. Though that's more of a map discussion than it is a Pro Rules discussion, so if you want a comprehensive Jamboree map video, then let me know in the comments below. The point I want to get across with this video is that I think Pro Rules are a fantastic start in the Mario Party series finally having a rule set for a different audience. An audience that I think has been playing Mario Party for a lot longer than a lot of casual players think. I understand fully that many people are probably not on board with this style of gameplay, and that's totally fine. It's just another option that is provided to players, a different format or flavor of the same game series that so many of us cherish and enjoy. And no one should be forced to play by a set of rules that they don't want to. I do think Pro Rules has a couple of issues, as I've stated previously, but these can 100% be ironed out in the future by allowing several customization options rather than being a locked-in, static set of rules. I'm pretty sure I talked about this in my Super Mario Party video that I did like absolutely ages ago. God, I'm getting old. In that the character-specific dice blocks of that game created scenarios where certain characters were simply better than others, and that there should have always been an option to turn those off for players that don't want their games to be decided by who's quicker to lock in Wario or Bowser. The same system applies here, where if you could choose which items were and weren't allowed, the specific turn limit to be more or less than 12 turns, and whether Jamboree partners themselves are turned on or off, could go a long way in providing insane replayability to any Mario Party game that features pro rules. Also, if you guys want a Jamboree partner discussion / tier list, I am super down to do that. Just give me like 6 months or 2 years to put it together because, geez, it is hard to stay motivated to make videos these days. Anyway, that's the video. I've got a bunch of video ideas in the works, so consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel. I've got a community Discord where you can talk about what you're interested in seeing or providing feedback on the channel and myself. That stuff is in the description below. Also, I'd appreciate a like on the video since it helps boost its visibility in the algorithm. Consider supporting me on Patreon or by becoming a channel member to help me fund more videos and buy more thumbnail art, since I'd really like to do content creation full time one of these days, man. One of these days. Anyway, thanks for watching. You guys are beautiful. Talk to you later. Love you lots. See you next time.